starboard wing was on fire. The night was dark as the grave, but I could see by the light of the flames. I crawled along the fuselage and found the dinghy pack. I bunged it through the hatch and jumped. Jesus, the water was cold. His voice was low and calm, but he took hard pulls on his cigarette, drawing the smoke deep into his lungs and blowing it out between tight pursed lips in a long jet. I was wearing a life jacket, and I came to the surface like a cork. There was quite a swell, and I was going up and down like a tart's knickers, but I couldn't get into the dinghy. Luckily, the dinghy pack was right in front of my nose. I pulled the string, and it inflated itself, but I didn't have the strength to heave myself out of the water. I couldn't understand it. Didn't realize I had a dislocated shoulder and a broken wrist and 3 cracked ribs and all that. So I just stayed there, holding on, freezing to death. There had been a time, Digby recalled, when he thought Bart had been the lucky one. Eventually Jones and Croft appeared. They'd held on to the tail until it went down. Neither could swim, but their Mae Wests saved them, and they managed to scramble into the dinghy and pull me in. He lit a fresh cigarette. I never saw Pickering. I don't know what happened to him, but I assume he's at the bottom of the sea. He fell silent. There was one crew member unaccounted for, Digby realized. After a pause, he said, "What about the 5th man?" John Rowley, the bomb aimer, was alive. We heard him call out. I was in a bit of a daze, but Jones and Croft tried to row towards the voice. He shook his head in a gesture of hopelessness. You can't imagine how difficult it was. The swell must have been 3 or 4 feet. The flames were dying down, so we couldn't see much, and the wind was howling like a bloody banshee. Jones yelled, and he's got a strong voice. Rowley would shout back, then the dinghy would go up one side of a wave and down the other and spin around at the same time. And when he called out again, his voice seemed to come from a complete different direction. I don't know how long it went on. Rowley kept shouting, but his voice became weaker as the cold got to him. Bart's face stiffened. He started to sound a bit pathetic, calling to God and his mother and that sort of rot. Eventually he went quiet. Digby found he was holding his breath, as if the mere sound of breathing would be an intrusion on such a dreadful memory. We were found soon after dawn by a destroyer on U-boat patrol. They dropped a cutter and hauled us in. Bart looked out of the window, blind to the green Hertfordshire landscape, seeing a different scene far away. "Bloody lucky, really," he said. They sat in silence for a while. Then Bart said, "Was the raid a success? No one will tell me how many came home." "Disastrous," Digby said. "What about my squadron?" Sergeant Jenkins and his crew got back safely. Digby drew a slip of paper from his pocket. So did Pilot Officer Arasaratnam. Where's he from? Ceylon. And Sergeant Riley's aircraft took a hit, but made it back. "Luck of the Irish," said Bart. "What about the rest?" Digby just shook his head. "But there were 6 aircraft from my squadron on that raid," Bart protested. "I know. As well as you, 2 more were shot down. No apparent survivors." "So Creighton Smith is dead. And Billy Shaw. And... oh, God." He turned away. "I'm sorry." Bart's mood changed from despair to anger. "It's not enough to be sorry," he said. "We're being sent out there to die." "I know. For Christ's sake, Digby, you're part of the bloody government." "I work for the Prime Minister, yes." Churchill liked to bring people from private industry into government, and Digby, a successful aircraft designer before the war, was one of his troubleshooters. "Then this is your fault as much as anyone's. You shouldn't be wasting your time visiting the sick. Get the hell out of here and do something about it." "I am doing something," Digby said calmly. "I've been given the task of finding out why this is happening. We lost 50% of the aircraft on that raid." "Bloody treachery at the top, I suspect. Or some fool air marshal boasting in his club about tomorrow's raid, and a Nazi barman taking notes behind the beer pumps." "That's one possibility." Bart sighed. "I'm sorry, Diggers," he said, using a childhood nickname. "It's not your fault. I'm just blowing my top." "Seriously, have you any idea why so many are being shot down? You've flown more than a dozen missions. What's your hunch?" Bart looked thoughtful. "I wasn't just sounding off about spies. When we get to Germany, they're ready for us. They know we're coming." "What makes you say that?" "Their fighters are in the air, waiting for us. You know how difficult it is for defensive forces to time that right. The fighter squadron has to be scrambled at just the right moment. They must navigate from their airfield to the area where they think we might be. Then they have to climb above our ceiling, and when they've done all that, they have to find us in the moonlight. The whole process takes so much time that we should be able to drop our ordnance and get clear before they catch us. But it isn't happening that way." Digby nodded. Bart's experience matched that of other pilots he had questioned. He was about to say so when Bart looked up and smiled over Digby's shoulder. Digby turned to see a Negro in the uniform of a squadron leader. Like Bart, he was young for his rank, and Digby guessed he had received the automatic promotions that came with combat experience. Flight lieutenant after 12 sorties, squadron leader after 15. Bart said, "Hello, Charles." "You had us all worried, Bartlett. How are you?" The newcomer's accent was Caribbean, overlaid with an Oxbridge drawl. "I may live, they say." With a fingertip, Charles touched the back of Bart's hand, where it emerged from his sling. It was a curiously affectionate gesture, Digby thought. "I'm jolly glad to hear it," Charles said. "Charles, meet my brother Digby. Digby, this is Charles Ford. We were together at Trinity until we left to join the Air Force." "It was the only way to avoid taking our exams," Charles said, shaking Digby's hand. Bart said, "How are the Africans treating you?" Charles smiled and explained to Digby, "There's a squadron of Rhodesians at our airfield. First-class flyers, but they find it difficult to deal with an officer of my color. We call them the Africans, which seems to irritate them slightly. I can't think why." Digby said, "Obviously you're not letting it get you down." "I believe that with patience and improved education, we may eventually be able to civilize such people, primitive though they seem now." Charles looked away, and Digby caught a glimpse of the anger beneath his good humor. "I was just asking Bart why he thinks we're losing so many bombers," Digby said. "What's your opinion?" "I wasn't on this raid," Charles said. "By all accounts, I was lucky to miss it. But other recent operations have been pretty bad. I get the feeling the Luftwaffe can follow us through cloud. Might they have some kind of equipment on board that enables them to locate us even when we're not visible?" Digby shook his head. "Every crashed enemy aircraft is minutely examined, and we've never seen anything like what you're talking about. We're working hard to invent that kind of device, and I'm sure the enemy are too, but we're a long way from success, and we're pretty sure they're well behind us. I don't think that's it." "Well, that's what it feels like." "I still think there are spies," Bart said. "Interesting." Digby stood up. "I have to get back to Whitehall. Thanks for your opinions. It helps to talk to the men at the sharp end." He shook hands with Charles and squeezed Bart's uninjured shoulder. "Sit still and get well. They say I'll be flying again in a few weeks. I can't say I'm glad." As Digby turned to go, Charles said, "May I ask you a question?" "Of course." "On a raid like this one, the cost to us of replacing lost aircraft must be more than the